Hi there, this is Amanda Frankel with our Crafty Playdate, and today we are making the third card in our September Christmas card club. We're making this card here. Ignore the smudge here. This was my sample for a class and it got passed around and smudged, so ignore that. We won't do that to ours, hopefully, but this is the Christmas club that we had for September. We start our Christmas club in July and we make 3 different cards. We make 4 each, so you have 12 cards a month. We finish up in November before Thanksgiving, and so you end up with 60 handmade cards that are ready to go out in the mail, and you don't have to worry about it during the busy Christmas season. So we already have these 2 videos, and you can check those out on my YouTube channel. They are labeled as Christmas Club for September 2022 if you're looking. This is the one we are making today. Now, I don't usually do this. I usually just tell you about alternates, but I'm going to actually show you a couple in using this kind of idea. I always like to do a card that is kind of whimsical every time. So this is a cool card. It's called a gatefold because it opens and closes like a gate. And I'm going to give you some pointers on that. And then we are going to talk a little bit more about this panel. Let's get started. All right, so we are using, for our inside panel, you know what, let's start with the big parts. Oh, I need that. All right, this is my scoreboard here. Simply Scored machine. And machine. I don't know that it's a machine. It's a thing. I am using Granny Apple Green, and everything that I use will be listed below, so you can just click on it. But I'm using Granny Apple Green cardstock, and this card is exactly the same size as all the other cards. It's going to fit in a standard envelope, even though it's gatefold. It is still an 8.5 by 5.5 piece of cardstock, which is half of an 8.5 by 11. Instead of folding it in the middle like you normally would to just fold it over, you do want to score it with a scoreboard, or you can use your trimmer also, but I'm going to use my scoreboard. You want to score it at 2 1/8. So there's 2, and 1/8 is just, I'm going to move that down. Here's 2, and 1/8 is just 1 tick past the 2. And then I'm going to rotate it and do it at 2 1/8. Once you get really good at this, you don't have to rotate it. You can just say it's 8.5. So 2 inches off that would be here, and then 1/8 further, and it would be 6 3/8. But I didn't want to confuse anybody. So you can just do 2 1/8 and rotate it 2 1/8. All right. And the reason it's 2 1/8, just so you can figure this out if you're going to make a different size ever, is because 2 1/8 is half of 4 1/4, which is the width that we need the finished card to be. Okay, so there is our card base, and now let's work on our panel. The pieces that we're using today, the white is a 3 by 4. 3 by 4 is a very common size. I use it in a lot of my different cards. It's actually here also, and in some of the other months of Christmas Club. So definitely check out why, but it has to do with the 12 by 12 piece of paper, which makes sense. That's our white. And then in this green is, it's not evening evergreen. You know what? I will actually list it below, because right now, at this very second, I cannot, maybe it is. No, it's not. I don't remember what it's called right now. I will have to post it in the spruce, shaded spruce. There we go. I knew it'd come to me. It is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So it is a little bit bigger than that, so that we have a frame that we're going to mat that on. Okay, but let's work on the white. So the designer series paper that we're using, because these are all designer series paper, and it's a great way to use up some scraps. These aren't even scraps. These are just so adorable. I have to show you. Let's see. I'm going to show you 2 things. First of all, the inside stamp that we're using is So Very Merry, and that is going to come from this here. It is the Trees for Sale stamp set. We've used this in another Christmas club, so you definitely should check that one out. I taught you how to stack it up to make a tree lot like that with less stamping. And the paper that we're using, the designer series paper that we're using, is way in the back of the catalog. As a matter of fact, last page. And it is here. It's called Celebrate Everything. and it's kind of hidden back here. It is one of the hosting rewards. So the only way that you can get this is by using Hostess dollars. That means if you have a party or if you just have a big order of things that you want yourself, you earn host dollars. You earn 10% at $150, and this is $18, so you would earn all but $3 of it for free, and then you could just add on your $3. So it is a great stack, though. It is a humongous stack of paper. Look at that. So it's got, yes, Christmas for sure, but it also has some stars and different, oh, there's some Halloween. So you are going to see fall, 4th of July, great birthday, but we're actually using that as Christmas. But anyway, it's got some great papers in there, and it gives you a ton of it. Let's see, it is 48 sheets of 12 by 12 paper, so that will last you all year. But we would use this. This is a great card to make with scraps. So let me just show you what I've done here. I am going to use some early espresso for my stem, and then I am using different sized pieces on my way up, and I'm going to give you all the measurements here, so you can pause me here on YouTube and then you can write it all down, or you can just wing it. Also will work. Okay, I'm spreading them way out like that so you can kind of see. So this one here is 3/8 wide by 1 inch tall, and that is your stem of your tree. What is that called? Trunk of your tree. This one here is 3/4 inch wide by 2.5 inches long. Again, 3/4 by 2, 3/4 by 1.5. So these are all the same width. They're just a 1/2 inch shorter each time. And then we change widths here. This goes to a 1/2 inch, so it's a little bit more narrow. So it's a 1/2 inch by 1, and then a 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch, and then you've got a little gold or a little silver star. So I find it very, very helpful to use my grid paper on this. And remember, it's 3 by 4, so it fits perfectly on here. I find it comfortable to do this because then I know right where my stem needs to be and right where my star needs to end up, so that you don't get too catty-wampered. That's a word. I promise it really is. This, because it is whimsical and kind of twisty, it's very easy to like have your tree leaning one direction. Mine does a little bit. It's also easy to drop it in an ink pad, but that's a whole nother story. So let's get gluing. I start at the bottom. And you definitely want to use liquid glue on this. And the reason is, if you use liquid glue and you don't like the angle of something, you have a couple seconds. Look at that fun fall paper on the back. You have a couple of seconds where you could, move it around. I'm going to angle it this way to begin with. Actually, I'm going to give it a little less. See, I just moved it. This one is going to go this way, like this. Is that about the right? Yeah. Okay, this one is going to go back the other way, like this again. All right, some people are really not comfortable with a whimsical twisty, and I'm going to show you an alternative tree idea for that. And then I'm going to show you something else that's really cool that you can do. So hang on to your britches here, because this is almost done. Seriously, that's all she wrote. This is so easy. And a little bit of glue on my star. This is silver glimmer paper. We do not have silver glimmer paper anymore. I will list it below in case it ever is available or on sale or something. But you could easily use silver foil, or you could just use paper with a glimmer in it. So it's an easy peasy thing to do. That is it for the panel. Oh, I still need my glue. What am I doing? I'm going to glue this panel onto the green. Shaded spruce green. See, I remembered. I knew I would eventually, or I would look it up and just have to post it below, because I do that too. All right, so that is on there. And now there's a little bit of a trick to get it on here. I want to make sure that my card opens. So if you put adhesive on this whole area, you're gluing your card closed. And I've done that before. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip my card over and pretend like I am gluing it down. And then I'm going to use this center line where it splits, and I am not going to cross that center line. It's kind of like, ooh, almost dropped a big pile of stuff. It's almost like driving. You don't want to pass the big center line. Okay, so I'm going to use some dimensionals here. I'm just going to get a couple ready to go. All right, and the reason I'm doing it over here is when I turn it over, it's going to be on the other side, so that works for me. Okay, so I'm going to go here, 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 and here. And now I can take these off, and you see that I only did it on the one side. I did not cross the center line, although I got awfully close down here, but we'll see. Okay. And now I'm going to just center it on here, and it should open and close like a champ. There you go. So that is the trick on putting your panel on a gatefold card. I actually already stamped this. I'm sorry. I used Granny Apple Green ink, and I used the stamp set that I showed you. And this is what's going inside. So I'll just do that really quickly. You never ever want to use too much glue. Too much glue inside, not inside, but just on white or vanilla particularly, because it gets a little bit of a bubble because it's a little thinner, a little more delicate paper. That is it for your card. Easy peasy. But I wanted to show you some other variations in case you are one of those people that doing something wonky like this gives you a rash, and I do get that. You can make yourself a template. So what I did here, you can see the panel here. Okay, and then I also embossed that. See that? So if you are uncomfortable doing a wonky tree like this, which is actually cute and fun and much quicker, you can absolutely do it this way, and I'm going to show you what I did. I made a template using my trimmer so that I would be cutting both sides at the same angle. So here I went in, I believe I went in 1/2 of an inch. Yeah, I went in 1/2 of an inch. So I used my trimmer and I cut the same angle on both sides, and I made it the size of my biggest piece. So I just put that right on top there and cut it with my scissors. Hold on. And cut it with my scissors like this. So you only need 2 templates, and it's just by width. Okay, so this template works for the bottom row, which is this one. Otherwise, there was the same measurement starting out. Okay, now this one is the next one, and you can see obviously it's smaller. So you're just going to make the point match and make sure that it's flat. And then you can cut, and it will keep the same angle. Okay, and then this one here too. Just slide it down, points match, and you can cut it, and it makes an angle. And this one also, points match, and you can cut the same. So you're understanding where I'm going with this, right? I'm making a huge mess, but it sure is fun. Okay, so I've got my base, then this one, then this one. So you're seeing what I'm doing. And then I made another template and another piece of that other little paper. But now I don't know where I put it. All right, well, anyway, the next template, I made it out of the same material, the same color, so that it would definitely stand out against my Designer Series paper. You don't want to make it so that it is the same color as your Designer Series paper, because then you will never be able to find it. And then I cut, instead of being 1/2 of an inch, I just did 1/4 of an inch when I angled it. Instead of doing this, I did this, okay? And I did 1/4 of an inch. And then I cut my 2 other pieces using that, exactly the same method. And then when I stacked them, I just, all kinds of paper here. When I stacked them, I used the same kind of base, the same trunk, and I just stacked them straight on. They do overlap a little bit. They're not right at each other's edge. They do overlap, but otherwise it is the same. And I just glued them on, and then I ran the whole thing. Before I glued this on, I ran the whole thing through the embossing folder, and I used the one in this that is that snowflake one that came with the pine one. Just very super cute. And what that does is it kind of quilts all this into the paper. So that there's no layers here. It doesn't feel like. It feels like it's all one piece of paper, which is kind of cool. And then I stuck my star on afterwards so that it wouldn't get in the embossing folder. So that is this panel. So if you are not comfortable with the wonky whimsical, you could do a little more straightforward and formal-ish, but you're still using the same dimensions of the scraps that I told you about. But using the same idea, using scraps of paper and doing the whole embossing, I want to show you something else that I've made. Same kind of thing. It is a wedding card. So it is the same size papers here. And I just did a white strip the entire length of this cake right here. And then I glued my pieces all onto that strip so that they were all stuck together instead of gluing it right on the paper because there's a dimensional under here. So I just glued all the little pieces on a strip like this. And then I took this piece, this cake, and I ran it through the embossing folder. And I think I used the, what did I use here? I used the painted texture. Well, that makes sense. Embossing folder so that it looks like frosting. And embossed the whole cake with that. And then I put the whole cake on dimensionals onto my panels. And this is Blushing Bride if you're interested. And this is an old retired stamp, but you could put whatever you want as your cake topper. And it makes a cute wedding card. You could spray it with shimmer paint or something to make it sparkly, but it is the same philosophy. It is just not a gatefold. It's just a normal card. I just wanted to show you different ways that you could stack things like this, stack scraps to make, I can get rid of that one because it's got the smudge on it, stack them to make a scrappy kind of fun piece. And this is all scraps too, by the way. These are all scraps that I had kind of hanging out. All right, that's all she wrote. If you are interested in getting a kit that would include 3 each of these cards, everything already cut for you. If you want the angles for your tree, if the wonky bothers you, let me know and I will cut a template for you, and then you can just follow along with the video if you order the kit. If you would like that, I've got my email in the description below, and you can just send me a quick email and let me know. Otherwise, if you're just making this at home, just check the description below for all of the items that I use. There will be links to my website. If you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator of your own, I would really love to be yours. So just be sure that you subscribe here and hit the bell so that the next time I upload a video, you actually see it. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you use some of these variations for your different things. This is a great format for all different kinds of things that you would stack, gifts, etc. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.